Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Futuh Al Ghaib, The Revelations of the Unseen, by Muhiyeddeen Abdul Qadir Al Gilani Qaddasallahu Sirrahul Azeez. The 45th discourse. He, may Allah be pleased with him, said, Know that people are of two kinds. One kind of people are those that are blessed with the good things of the world, whereas the other kind are tried with what their Lord has decreed for them. As for those who receive the good things, they are not free from the blemishes of sin and darkness in the enjoyment of what they are given. Such a person indulges in luxury on account of these things when all of a sudden the decree of Allah comes, which darkens his surrounding through various kinds of misfortunes and calamities in the shape of a disease and suffering and troubles on his own life and property and on the members of his family and on his offspring, so that life becomes miserable through them. And it appears as if he had never enjoyed anything. He forgets the comforts and their sweetness. And if the affluence continues together with wealth and position, and male slaves and female slaves, and security from enemies, he is in a state of blessing, as if calamity has no existence for him. And if he is in the midst of calamity, it seems as if happiness has no existence. And all this is due to ignorance of his master. Then, if he had known that his master is absolutely free to do anything, then, if he had known that his master is absolutely free to do whatever he likes and changes and transforms and sweetens and embitters and enriches and empowers and raises and lowers and gives honor and abases and gives life and causes death and give a man precedence and pushes him to the background, if he had known all this, he could not have felt secure in the midst of happy worldly life. If he had known all this, he could not have felt secure in the midst of happy worldly circumstances, and could not have felt proud on account of them, nor would he have despaired of happiness while in a state of calamity. This wrong behavior of his is due also to his ignorance of this world, which is in reality the place of trials and bitterness and ignorance and pain and darkness, and of which the rule is trial and happiness only an exception. The wrong behavior of his is due all to his ignorance of this world, which is in reality the place of trials and bitterness and ignorance and pain and darkness, and of which the rule is trial, and happiness only an exception. Thus the worldly life is like a tree of laws of which the first taste is bitter, whereas the ultimate consequence is sweet like honey, and no man can get at its sweetness unless he first swallowed its bitter taste, and no one can reach the honey unless he has first showed patience with its bitterness. So, whoever has shown patience on these trials of the world is entitled to taste its blessings. To be sure, a laborer is given his wages after his forehead has sweated, and his body has become tired, and his soul has become troubled, and his breast has become contracted, and his strength has departed, and his self has become humiliated, and his vanity has become broken through the service of a creature like himself. Thus, When one has drunk all this bitterness in full, then follows for him good food and fruits and dress and comforts and joy, even if they be small. Thus, the world is a thing of which the first part is bitterness, like the top part of some honey kept in a vessel mixed with bitterness, so that an eater cannot get into the bottom of the vessel and thus eat pure honey out of it until after he has tasted the top part of it, which is bitter. So, when the servant of Allah has persevered in the performance of the commandment of Allah, the mighty, the glorious, and in keeping away from his prohibitions, and in submitting before him, and in surrendering himself to the decrees of destiny, and when he has drunk the bitterness thereof, and has lifted the burden of it, and has struggled against his own desires, and has discarded his own objectives, Allah gives him, as a result of this, good life and loving attention and comfort and honor. And he becomes his guardian and feeds him just as a suckling baby, fed without any effort on his part, and without his bearing any trouble and strain in this world and in the hereafter. In the same manner as an eater of the bitter top part of the aforesaid honey relishes the bottom part of the contents of the vessel. So it is proper for the servant who has been favored by Allah not to feel secure from the trial of Allah by being enhanced or enchanted by the favor, not to feel sure as to its perpetuity and thus become forgetful of gratitude for it and relax its restrictions by discarding thankfulness on account of it. The Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said, "Happy worldly circumstances is a savage thing, so restrain it by thankfulness." Happy worldly circumstances is a savage thing, so restrain it by thankfulness. Thus, thankfulness of the blessings of wealth is to acknowledge it to the giver. Thus, thankfulness of the blessings of wealth is to acknowledge it to the giver of it, who it bountiful, that is Allah, to mention it to one's own self in all conditions of life, and to appropriate his favor and generosity, and also that one should not feel like having any claim on Allah, nor should one outstep his bounds in the matter, nor should one discard his commandment in the matter, and after this, by fulfilling the obligations to him in respect of zakat and expiation and votive offerings and alms, and by redressing the sufferings of the oppressed ones and helping the needy who are in difficulty and whose circumstances have changed from good to bad. That is to say, whose time of happiness and helpfulness have changed into hard and difficult ones. And thankfulness for the blessings of comfort in the limbs and the organs of the body is to use them in carrying out the commandments of Allah and in restraining oneself from things forbidden and from evil and sinful acts. So this is how to protect blessings from passing away, and to irrigate its plant and to accelerate the growth of its branches and leaves, and to help the beautification of its fruits, and to sweeten its taste, and to assure the safety of its end, and to make its eating tasteful, and to make its swallowing easy, and to make it yield comfort, and to enable it to maintain its growth in the body, and to make its blessing manifest itself on the organs of the body through various kinds of acts of obedience to Allah, such as will render one nearer to Allah and keep him in his remembrance, and will further make the servant enter in the life hereafter into the mercy of Allah, the Mighty, the Glorious, and will earn for him an abiding life in the gardens of paradise, in the holy companionship of prophets, Siddiqs, the truthful ones, the Shuhada, the Shahids, the witness, and the Salih, the righteous ones. A beautiful company these are. But if one does not act like this and becomes enamored of what appears of the outward beauty of such a life, and engrossed in the enjoyments of it, and becomes contented with the glitter of its mirage and the sparkle of this lightning like appearance, all of which are like the blowing of cool breeze in the morning of a hot summer day, and like the softness of the skin of a serpent and scorpion, and becomes forgetful of the deadly poison which has been reposed in it, and of its deep deception and craftiness, all of which have as their aim to catch him and imprison him and to destroy him. Such a man should be given the tidings of rejection and of speedy destruction, and poverty with abasement and humiliation in this world, and of chastisement in the long run in burning hellfire. And as for the trial of man, sometimes it comes as a punishment for any violation of law and any sin which has been committed. At others, it comes with the object of removing the defects and refining the nature of man, and at still others, it comes to raise a man in his spiritual rank and to take him to the higher stages where he may join the people of spiritual knowledge who have experience of different states and positions, for whom the grace of the Lord of the creation and humanity has been allotted beforehand, who have been made to travel in the fields of calamities, riding on the conveyance of tenderness and kindness, and whom he has soothed by breeze of kind observation and loving watch in their movements and repose, because such a trial was not meant for destruction. Because such a trial was not meant for destruction and for hurling them in the depths of the hell. On the contrary, by means of these trials, Allah has tested them for selection and choice, and has brought out from them the reality of faith, and has refined it and made it distinct from polytheism and boasting of self and hypocrisy, and has made a free gift as a reward for them of various kinds of knowledge and secrets and light. So, when these people have become clean outwardly and inwardly, and when their hearts have become purified, he has made them among the specially selected and the favorites of his court and companions of his mercy in this world and in the hereafter. In this world through their hearts, and in the hereafter through their bodies. Thus the calamities are purifiers. Thus the calamities are purifiers of the dirt of polytheism and breakers of connections with people and with the means of the world and with desires and wishes, and are instrumental in melting the boastfulness and greediness and the expectations of returns for obedience to commandments in the shape of high positions and stations in paradise and gardens of heaven. Thus, the calamities are purifiers of the dirt of polytheism and breakers of connection with the people and with the means of the world and with desires and wishes, and are instrumental in melting the boastfulness and greediness and the expectations of returns for obedience to commandments in the shape of high positions and stations in paradise and gardens of heaven. Now, the indication of trial by way of punishment is want of patience on the arrival of these trials, and bewailing and complaints before people. And the indication of trial by way of purification and removal of weakness is the presence of graceful patience without any complaint, and expressions of grief before friends and neighbors, and without any disgust with the performance of commandments and acts of obedience. And the indication of trial for the exaltations of rank is the presence of pleasure and amity and composure of mind and peacefulness with regard to the act of Allah, the Lord of the earth and heavens, and to completely lose oneself in this trial till the time of its removal in course of time.